Every man remembers the woman who didn't just break his heart, she dismantled him piece by piece. Not through the sudden shock of violence, not through the sharp sting of betrayal, but through the slow, insidious erosion of his confidence, his purpose, and his very sense of self. He entered the relationship as a man with a burning fire in his eyes, full of ambition and self-belief, and he emerged from it as a hollowed-out ghost, a man who found himself apologizing for the space he occupied, for the air he breathed, for simply existing. That isn't love. That is psychological decay, masterfully disguised as affection, a slow-acting poison administered with a smile. And the most dangerous, most terrifying part of this entire process, she didn't destroy him because she hated him. In fact, her actions were often wrapped in declarations of love and concern. She destroyed him because, deep down in the unexamined corners of her own psyche, she needed to control him. Her fear of abandonment was so profound, so all-consuming, that it manifested as a desperate, subconscious need to anchor him to her, even if it meant clipping his wings and extinguishing the light that made him who he was. It always starts the same way, a beautiful, intoxicating illusion. In the beginning, she adores him. She becomes the perfect mirror, reflecting back his own dreams and ambitions, praising his strength with an almost reverent awe, and whispering the words every man longs to hear, "You re different from the rest." For the first time, perhaps in his entire life, he feels truly seen. He feels understood, validated, and celebrated for his very essence. He lets his guard down, believing he has finally found a safe harbor in a chaotic world, but the mirror was never real. It was a carefully constructed facade, a temporary reflection designed to lure him in. Once she feels secure in his affection, once he is fully, emotionally invested and has tethered his happiness to hers, the dynamic flips. The once adoring mirror shatters, and she becomes the sole arbiter of the emotional climate. She now holds the thermostat for their entire world, granting warmth and affection as a reward for compliance, and inflicting a chilling, isolating distance as punishment for any display of individuality or dissent. This is not a conscious, Machiavellian plan she has mapped out. It is a deeply ingrained, instinctive pattern, a self-perpetuating cycle built on a bedrock of fear. If I can control him, if I can make him dependent on my approval, he can never leave me. Psychologically, this devastating process is a textbook example of emotional conditioning, a powerful form of intermittent reinforcement. It's the very same method used to train animals, a calculated system of reward and withdrawal, of pleasure and pain. Over time, he becomes addicted not to her, but to her approval. The rare moments of warmth become a drug he desperately craves, and he will do anything to get his next fix, even if it means sacrificing parts of himself. He starts asking permission to be himself, testing the waters before sharing an opinion or pursuing a personal goal. He stops disagreeing, learning that harmony, however artificial, is preferable to the cold, silent punishment of her disapproval. He begins to systematically silence his own masculinity, because every time he shows authentic strength, asserts a boundary, or makes a decision without her input, she withdraws her love. He learns that his power is a threat to her control. This dynamic is no longer about love, partnership, or mutual respect. It has devolved into a raw primal struggle for dominance. She needs to feel powerful in the relationship because, deep down, she feels utterly powerless in her own life. His submission becomes the validation she cannot find within herself, Eventually, the transformation is complete. He becomes precisely what her fear-driven subconscious wanted: silent, small, compliant. A man without edges, without a strong voice, without an independent will. He has been successfully domesticated. But in this hollow victory, a profound and tragic irony unfolds. He loses the very light in his eyes, the confident spark, the untamed energy, the very qualities that once attracted her to him in the first place. And that is precisely when she begins to lose interest, when a creeping sense of contempt begins to replace her need for control. Because she never truly wanted peace, she wanted power. The thrill was in the taming, not the tamed. And now that he is broken, a predictable and compliant shell of his former self, there is nothing left to control. The game is over. So she leaves, often with the final devastating pronouncement that he has changed, that he's no longer the man she fell in love with. He is left shattered, utterly bewildered, replaying every moment and wondering what he did wrong. But the truth is, he didn't lose her. He lost himself long before she ever walked out the door. The healing, the true masculine awakening, begins only when he stops blaming her and starts facing himself. Because she was never the ultimate cause of his destruction. She was only the mirror. She was the catalyst, the event that exposed the pre-existing weaknesses within him. She reflected the parts of him that were already insecure, the parts that were desperate for external validation, and the deep, terrifying fear of being alone that made him willing to trade his sovereignty for a fleeting sense of security. Once a man reclaims his boundaries, refusing to apologize for his existence. Once he reclaims his voice, speaking his truth without fear of punishment. And once he reclaims his purpose, his non-negotiable mission in life that exists independent of any woman's approval, no woman can ever destroy him again. He becomes immune to this specific kind of psychological warfare. The moment he stops chasing validation from others and starts generating it from within, he becomes untouchable. Every man must die once, not a physical death, but a profound emotional and ego death, before he can be reborn as who he is truly meant to be. Some women destroy men, yes, but sometimes that very destruction is the crucible, the unforgiving fire that forges him into something resilient, something powerful, something unbreakable.